One of the greatest challenges of teaching martial arts is wondering how to pass it on to kids. Children a lot of times don't have interests, but they love to do what mommy and daddy are doing. If you just let them continually see what you're doing and do it by example, take them to events where they can watch and they can learn, and make it a game that you guys can play together and spend family time. Well, the kids will always be encouraged knowing not what you're saying, but what you're doing. And if you can get the family involved as if it's an event, then they will naturally take into it like it's part of the family pastime. So instead of trying to teach them by telling them, teach them by participating with them and showing them. And then also show them that all of the fantasies and superheroes that they watch on TV, that can be them too. Make it a game. Not only will they enjoy it, but you'll enjoy it as well. Relive your youth the way that you wanted to, and show them that life is the greatest adventure. So first, looking at the territorial elbow, remember one hand goes in, the other one draws back with the waist, keep the shoulders and hips connected, and then extend while twisting into the target. Now that means I'm pulling back on this first movement, whether it's an attack or just opening his guard, but I'm twisting inward to myself. I'm not actually just blocking it or batting it away. So you basically guide it towards yourself just so it will be out of range for the strike. This is the guiding hammer. Now this can be done to the face, as we'll do it later. But first we're going to do it on the inside of this wrist, as it discourages and really takes away the energy of the opponent's attack. If you can discourage him from using that hand, you'll have more advantages not only on defense but as offense as well. Now here doing the same thing, we're going to use the elbow as a stopping opponent. So using this elbow, you'll see that I still draw back and I cut off whatever's coming in, not with just my arm, but with my feet. By doing that, whatever would come out gets trapped behind them. And I can use that against an oncoming strike, or I can use that directly in the center of his chest or in his throat. Remember, you can tilt all of the angles of these strikes higher and lower. So here we're using it more as a jam. Now this is just a simple touch and go. Very quick motion. Very easy to do. And like I said, I can use that just to open him up so I can get to a target easier. This is the hidden hammer. You'll see by guiding this movement while he's coming in, he won't even see this attack coming. Be sure you use the waist to project that attack right into the target. I recommend putting it right in the chin. It's almost like an uppercut that comes from the side. Now if you miss, you can of course follow up with the elbow or work a combination, open up the guard. But that hidden hammer is always there. Now this is the bursting trap. What's important to understand when you're doing bursting is that it comes from the dantian, the lower part of your body. So when you draw him in, you coil first and explode that energy into him. Now does it matter if you're using a fist or an elbow? No, not really. The point is that force going into your body, and you just want to keep your shoulders down as you drive into him. It will knock him back and will give you time for another strike. Or if you place it in the right place, that strike itself could end the fray. Practice all of the movements. Now I'm throwing it off the other hand, but you want to make sure that you're doing this so many times that you feel comfortable, that it becomes one move. So initially I do 1, 2, then 3. And I make sure I keep my shoulder down, my body has the curves, so that my step becomes the strike. But then put it together as one motion. One motion. He comes in, he gets out. Try different variations with these techniques. Here I'm doing it from a lower strike, and I'm using brushing now. So instead of trying to capture it with that first fist, I'm actually just sliding across it, grazing it, almost like ghost stepping. And as he misses, I throw it right into this opening. Still using that bursting power. You'll see the vibrations from me go into him. So watch, he vibrates the same way. That guarantees that the strike is internal. This is the propeller trap. Sorry, I only got the one angle from this, but you can see that basically I pull back, then one hand stops, climbs over the other one, and into the target. I'll give you some slow motion so you can see it. But as you pull back, you basically climb back up on that arm, making sure it doesn't slip up. If it's another attack, I could climb that arm instead. Now, it seems like a lot of motions, but when it's done correctly, it's just one motion. As you draw back with the hips and coil up, bring that power up right away. This is the 2-for-1. Basically what this means is you're starting to understand that by using the hips and keeping the elbows close together in your frame, that you can make two motions become one motion. So instead of thinking about it as two different attacks, it's just one that has two different parts to it. By listening to the sound, you realize that it only makes one sound. Now by doing this, of course, I can do a step, and whatever, if I step backwards or if I start retreating backwards, it gives me even more options. So this is very good. I wouldn't consider it as a strike, but more as a break. This is a very good way to snap the arm as it comes at you. Here it is, what we call the escaping break. So you'll see that as I slip back, I use my body weight and my hip turn, and I can do a snap on that arm as it comes in at me very easily. So this is the way to both get out of the way, escape from danger, and at the same time punish your opponent. Practice it until it's fluid, until it feels like it's just one motion. Now for applications, we're going to first start with grabbing. The grabbing technique is a little hard to understand because in most times when you grab, you want to use your hands. But here we're just going to use that twisting motion as he comes in. And you'll see that if you twist at the same rate of speed that he comes in at you, you'll actually be able to pull him with that small rotation like a vortex in the wrist. So you create a small tornado as you sink your way. And work slow at first, but then you eventually get faster. Make sure that you work it first on the inside, nice and fluidly, while he just throws a jab. You see the other hand always acts as a counterbalance. Now I'll do it to the other side so you can see it. All right, you'll see as he drives, I can do this on both the inside or the outside, but it's important to pull that in with the hips, let it rotate towards you. And you'll see that as I deliver it back, it could come back at him as a strike very easily if I wanted to. This kind of defense is crucial for being able to deliver any of the attacks. And you'll see I'll be able to pull it to the inside or the outside. Just by rotating and pulling the hips, make sure your hips are the key to that rotation. And you'll be able to not just stop the motion, but invite him into a place where he has no advantage. Now, of course, I could do the same thing while I'm stepping. I could step towards him or away from him to change the significance of what my advantage is. So once you've learned the motion, understand that you can tilt the angle of it and tilt it towards the opponent, basically doing the same twist but letting that arm lean one direction or the other. This offers different kinds of attacks with striking and countering. Now, there's no reason not to have your guard up, ever. So we can practice the same motion from a standard guard, so you can see that with your guard up, you can still open him up and get into a better range by twisting and turning at the hips. Now by using the step, I can start to smother him, or I can make him miss and step out of range. So keeping the guard up, you'll see there's no danger in understanding how to open up this opponent this way. Just takes a little practice, timing, and patience. Now the advantages with this over a guard is I can do this with one hand, or I can do this with two hands. So depending on how fast he's attacking or how hard he's attacking, I can make the proper adjustments. Just keep your elbows in, keep your shoulders down, stay close, don't flinch. And as you use those hips to turn them open, you'll see me move my hat. I can move it back while I'm still fighting. Now, of course, later on you can break this rhythm up however you want to for practice sakes, but first get used to the pattern. Now we're doing the same drill here, working with snapping. So working with the snaps, you want to make sure you really take your time. This arm break here, I've seen too many people have their arm broken accidentally in practice because they're moving too fast. The trick is by keeping your elbows in and turning with your hips, just by pulling your weight over on that joint and putting all the emphasis on it, it's very easy to dislocate it. So be careful, cautious, take your time and go slow. Now this works just from having a regular guard. Let him slip into that guard, pull him into the other hand. And you don't have to do it every time, but if the opportunity is there, and it often is, let him come through. So you can roll it off first, and when you see your opportunity, counter. Make sure you do all the movement from your legs through your hips. Now if you don't get it on the elbow joint, it still acts as a capture or as a pull. The movement works just as well from either side. So you can have them do different attacks. Like I said, first work the patterns, because people, when they box and they practice striking, they also practice in patterns, but then break that pattern for the more experienced fighters. It's important that you make sure that you're getting in range and not getting out range. Don't be afraid to get hit or to take a hit to deliver the necessary damage. Now we're working on tactics of just entering and getting closer to the opponent. This is going to help later on, you'll see, with doing different grabs. So I have different ranges here I can touch, all the way from the arm up to the throat. It's just like the hidden hammer. But once I'm able to get in there, it opens up so I can do a lot more strategic movements on my opponent. This is like a peekaboo. You just let it slip right past when you're inside to the weak points. And this movement is almost instantaneous when you do it right. Now if you understand entering, whether you're using it from the grab or the snap, basically it's going to make the next exercise a lot more feasible. So you want to get light on your feet with this, making sure your feet are controlling your hands and you're always able to get into the appropriate range. Now we're going to show you the lower snap so that you have more options. So the same thing, I use my waist to turn, but the inside hand traps just like that on the top, but now it's on the bottom. So my hand forces in one way as my body turns the forearm into the other part. So this is the higher one. Here's the lower one. Pull it in by turning the body and use the hips to generate that force. When you get comfortable, you just want to practice moving from high to low, low to high, and then random. See that keeping those feet lively means that every now and then you'll take a step just to make sure you step into the right range. If you're in the wrong range, the perfect move is the wrong move. So first work the movements, just alternating sides till you get your rhythm. And then you want to add the high, the low, together. So you can do 1, 2, 3, 4. I like to work these patterns at first, right? Just so I can get a good feeling of the sensation of the break. And then you break that pattern up using the different blocks. Realistically, you're not going to be able to go one snap into another. You can, depending on the opponent's intentions. But what you need to do is make sure that you can be fluent in motion as something continues to go at you, whether it's a fist, a kick, or a knife. Yes, these motions work on legs too. In the worst case scenario, as long as you're keeping your guard up, these movements will really absorb anything he's doing. Now we're doing the same thing, except we're going to do smothering. So this is more like trapping instead of snapping. What happens is, as he throws that next movement, I guide past it and get into a position where I can twist him up. You see, just grab that arm, and I put my weight on it, and he has no place to move. On the other side, I'll put my weight a little more, but now I'm just showing you ways to get that hand out of the way so that I can get that elbow in. They call this distant water cannot stop near fire. So what you're giving him is a near fire that can't be put out because his hand is out of distance. And that's what a trap basically entails. I can use it to pull him into a position, and see here, but what I best prefer is just using that weight. The whole point is getting your baseline lower than his baseline. If your base is lower than his, then whatever's happening in the tangle, you're in control. So practice being able to get into that position easily, and then later on you'll have multiple options of what you want to do next. Whether you want to do a trip, a twist, a takedown, it's all up to you. Now here we are with stick tricks. So I'm going to show you using the stick, doing the exact same motion as before. I'm going to be able to pull the opponent and make openings so I can use strikes on him. I can use this arm to block. Now the stick basically represents what my fist would be doing, so there's still that twist. Or I can use the inside hand too. I can block one right into the other, doing the damage, the lock, or the break. Or I can use it just to open him up. Now, these small little taps here do create a lot of damage, especially if you're doing it fast and forcefully. Now, you can use it for pokes, you can use it for jabs, but basically let that waist turn and turn the dangerous part of the weapon into him. I think it's important when you're using a weapon to not become reliant on the weapon. Realize that your whole body is a weapon, and that is just an extension, a longer piece. So be aware that you have shoulders, you still have your elbows, and because your feet are basically guiding the technique and the range, and you decide basically from the range what to use best. Sometimes the weapon can be a distraction if you become too reliant on it. Now here I'm using a little bit of bursting energy, you'll see, going right into the target. I'm going to put it right into one point in the stick, into his body. Now see here, I gave him a little bit of too much of a tap, so we start laughing a little bit. That's what happens working with stick work. So even if you're going slow, he can feel the damage. Just be careful. Find a partner you can train with. Have fun. See you next week.